carriage and 4 horses. He was risking everything on the talent of his own small son.
Wonderful feeling that morning. Escaping Salzburg had to be the best thing for my son. Only by his inhaling, how can I put it, the scent of a better class, feeling the adoration of 1,000 upon 1,000, could his musical education take flight. It wasn't luxury, but then how cosseted were the ancient Greeks aboard their trireme, with our loyal servant, Mr. Sebastian Winter, at the helm to guide our voyage. This truly was our Odyssey.
Driving as I am across Central Europe, I can only marvel at the enormous distances that the Mozart family had to traverse. But that being said, Leopold had picked the perfect time for this great trip. The 7-year war had just come to an end. It had been a particularly bloody conflict where all anyone could do was watch their back and look after their own. But now, with peace across much of Europe, the aristocracy in particular were able to enjoy themselves again and to throw money at entertainment.
He's all of 7. How can a little mite of 7 impress us? Come and sit on my lap, you little monkey. Come along. I shall stroke your hair. He's so tiny, just like a doll.
Play for the ladies, Wolfgang.
Oh, you poor little thing. So delicate. But can you see the baby calluses?
I have just the thing. Here, Poppet. Try lanolin. It works a little miracle on my gardener.
Oh, what a peculiar little boy. He's from some frightful little town in Austria. I understand he has the ability to play blindfolded. Ah, how remarkable. Well, if he wants his supper, he shall have to sing for it.
When the tiny Wolfgang was asked to play, what most astonished his aristocratic audience were his powers of improvisation. He'd be set a challenge, usually in the form of a bass line, something like that, and then he'd have to immediately come up with a complete piece of music based on that. So, 1 minute maybe he'd do... 5 minutes later, he'd come up with something completely different. And apparently, the seasoned composers of the day, the great musical minds, would come in one by one and challenge him to an improvisation contest. And several hours later, they'd stagger out, exhausted and spent. Mozart would bounce off the stool and say, "Any more?" As Wolfgang travelled through Germany into France, the invitations to play flooded in, and Leopold reaped the rewards. Snuff boxes, silver pens, gold pocket watches. The family was swiftly elevated from humble tradesmen to special guests at the royal courts of Europe. Wolfgang's imagination was stimulated by meeting the great musical minds of the age. All this attention had quite an impact on his image of himself.
I worried about Wolfgang. He always seemed to be lost in a world of his own, quite detached from reality. Of course, when he shared his imaginings with me, I was happy. He invented a land which he called the Kingdom of Bach. It had everything for good and happy children, and Wolfgang was king of it all. He asked the coachman to draw a map, and he would dictate the names of cities, market towns and villages. In this world, Wolfgang would sit on embroidered cushions and dispense treats and favours to the children of his land. Sometimes I think he spent more time there than in the everyday world.
This little boy became a superstar because of his musical powers, which many believed were supernatural. Some said Wolfgang was the creative spirit of God, embodied in the most innocent of creatures. Others gave him more political powers. that here was a symbol of a new egalitarian age.
Extraordinary mental, spiritual prowess enshrined in the body of an infant. My son was unquestionable proof of new, enlightened beliefs that talent could be given to all, not confined to a special class.
But the everyday world of travelling musicians was dangerous and grueling. In the warmth of my car, I can't begin to experience the cold and wet that forced the Mozarts to wrap their children's feet in felt and bury them beneath the straw that lay on the carriage floor. And deprived of fresh food, the family became malnourished and sick. As months turned into years, Wolfgang had to learn the hardships of life. Winter stiffened bones suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, and fever left him deathly sick for 2 months. But illness wasn't the only problem. The coach itself began to buckle under the strain.
Bastian! What do you see, Patrick?
How did Leopold justify a project that resembled not so much a heroic Greek odyssey, but a travelling circus with its prize freak for hire?
I wasn't only a father and a teacher, but a missionary. What was my advancement at court compared to my divine task? Showing those who were beginning to doubt that miracles did exist.
In early 1764, the Mozarts even crossed the perilous Channel to perform to an expectant English public.
Ladies and gentlemen, silence, please. The greatest prodigy that Europe, or even human nature, can boast of is, without contradiction, the little German boy, Wolfgang Mozart. A boy, 8 years old, who has, and indeed, very justly, won the admiration of not only the greatest men, but also the greatest musicians in Europe.
Leopold rented a theatre in Soho, selling tickets at 10 shillings and sixpence, about £40 today, to those eager to hear the boy who had charmed mad King George himself. In the duets, Wolfgang would play the lower role, whilst Manuel was given the more seemly, higher octaves. Little Wolfgang can't help showing off his compositional skills with all these trills and playful little scales. But in its uplifting warmth and lightness in feel, you can hear his rapid strides from his early works and sense the greater things to come.
Ladies and gentlemen, to your delight and wonder, the boy will now play a concerto without sight of his own hands.